So back in 2019, you probably heard about Ghana's Year of Return. It was this huge landmark initiative inviting the entire African diaspora to reconnect with their ancestral roots. It made headlines everywhere. But what happens after that big return? Well, today we're digging into the untold story, the really complex reality for those who made the journey, and interestingly, why some are now heading back to the US.
You see, the Year of Return wasn't just some slick tourism campaign. No, it was this deeply emotional, historic promise. It marked exactly 400 years since the first enslaved Africans arrived in Jamestown, Virginia. So this was a powerful, open invitation to come home, to heal, and to build a new future on the continent. And that promise, it was incredibly powerful. For a lot of people, it was just irresistible.
And wow, did they answer. Thousands of Black Americans, just filled with hope and this deep desire for connection, packed up their lives. And they weren't just visiting for a week or two. Many were relocating for good, investing their life savings and their biggest dreams into building a new life in Ghana, a place they truly envisioned as their homecoming.
Which brings us right to the heart of what we're talking about today. Because amidst all the success stories and the genuine excitement, a completely different story has started to pop up. We're hearing about people who are returning to the United States, their dream of a new life in Ghana, well, unfulfilled. So what is going on? Why are some of them leaving? Okay, to really understand this, the first thing we have to do is look at the gap, the sometimes huge gap that can form between that incredible dream of return and the day-to-day reality of life on the ground.
Right, so this breaks it down perfectly. On one side, you have the expectation. People were hoping for a seamless integration, just fitting right in. But the reality for many was a pretty pervasive culture shock. They imagined abundant opportunity, but they ran up against some very real economic and job market challenges. And that deep, deep desire for a sense of belonging, sometimes that clashed with the hard reality of still feeling like an outsider.
And this sentiment, which you see all over online forums and social media, just captures the whole emotional core of the issue, doesn't it? It's that painful realization that a spiritual and ancestral home doesn't automatically feel like your personal home. And that feeling of disillusionment, that's a key reason we need to dig a little deeper here. So let's go beyond just that emotional disconnect. Let's unpack the specific, practical hurdles that are causing some people to actually rethink their move.
The challenges really seem to fall into three main buckets. You've got economic pressures, bureaucratic hurdles, and that social and cultural disconnect we just touched on. We're going to tackle each one.
First up, let's talk money. A lot of people arrived expecting a much lower cost of living. But then they found that cities like Accra can have housing costs that are actually right up there with some US cities. The sticker shock is a real thing. On top of that, the job market is super competitive and local salaries often just can't match what people were used to in the US. For entrepreneurs, that dream of launching a cool new business can get bogged down in a reality that's just a lot tougher and way more expensive than they ever anticipated.
And then there's the bureaucracy. The whole process of getting long-term visas, residency permits, or even the basic licenses you need to start a business, well, it can be a slow, frustrating maze of red tape. This isn't unique to Ghana, of course, but for someone who just uprooted their entire life, these long, unpredictable delays can be incredibly discouraging, not to mention financially draining.
And this brings us to something that's absolutely crucial: culture shock. It's that feeling of disorientation you get when all your normal cultural cues are just different. And here's the key thing to get. Sharing a racial identity doesn't just erase generations of different cultural experiences, different languages, and different social norms. For many, this turns out to be one of the most unexpected and difficult hurdles to overcome. So that cultural gap can lead to a real social disconnect. Now, Ghanaians are known for being incredibly warm and welcoming, but some Black Americans say they still feel like outsiders. They might be lovingly but constantly called Obruni, which is a term for a foreigner. It's a constant little reminder that even though they've returned to their ancestral continent, they aren't always seen as being from the local community. So, with all these challenges, what does this all mean for the future of the Year of Return and the bigger movement that it represents?
This is the big question, right? Do these stories of people leaving mean the whole thing is over? Was the grand idea a failure?
Well, the answer seems to be a clear no. This isn't an ending at all. It's more of an evolution. That initial kind of romanticized phase is giving way to a more mature, more realistic understanding of what a return actually involves. It's a sign that the conversation itself is just getting deeper and a whole lot more honest.
And this really illustrates that shift perfectly.
The narrative is no longer this simple, triumphant story of homecoming. It's growing into a much more complex and, frankly, necessary conversation. It's a conversation about identity, about managing expectations, and about what home truly means. Is it just a place on a map? Is it a feeling of belonging? Or is it something else entirely?
Which leaves us with this final thought to chew on. Maybe the true value of this whole year of return movement isn't just about getting to a final destination. Maybe the most important part is the journey itself, the process of questioning, connecting, and discovering what it really means to belong in the 21st century. And that, for sure, is a journey that is far from over.